I think the first bit that I want to start off with is obviously like your journey in tech, right? Because we went to school together. I know like this was a thing for you from the beginning. This is what you wanted to be involved in. But like, what introduced you to tech and made you love it?
Well, I mean, I started working grade 8.
Exactly.
So it was more of, man, I couldn't afford stuff. So a plan has to be made really to get food for the next day, to get money to come to school. Yeah, no, like breaking a TV, looking at the PCB board, and essentially trying to deconstruct exactly how this component was put together, that component was put together. So that's where everything started. Then from there on, it was more of, can I make money with this? So after matric, I was happy. Then that's when I started working full time. We've essentially built. You've used our networks before. The first commercial Wi-Fi network in Africa that covered an entire town.
Oh, that's massive.
Yeah, so we built that, and then it sort of died down. Then I had to now go back to corporate. So I went to insurance companies, I went to CIT companies, software development companies, working the IT department. So for me to do that, because I don't really have qualifications for such, was through hackathons. So I would look at a topic that they give from these hackathons, and I'm like, okay, so what do I implement and how do I implement it? So I would study my topic extensively, so that on the day of that hackathon, I make sure I don't like losing. So by any means necessary, I'll probably then that's
You
what
have to win.
I have to win. So I'm quite competitive. So that's how really I got into the space of hackathons. Was okay. So since I do not really like conventional way of going to school, let me rather build up a profile of mine that I can use as an alternative to having a paper like, hey, I attended this school and I passed. So my first hackathon was Ekurhuleni hackathon. I actually did it while I was in matric. I was supposed to write my math paper that day, and the night before, I actually won 100,000 rand. But I was chuffed because I won that. I'm like, yes, so this really is possible. When you coming from a non-programming, because we couldn't afford to really get the fancy phones. Well, me, I couldn't afford that. I modified my phones. I even added a DVD speaker to my phone to make it loud.
I remember.
So it was practically more of a hacking way into life. So that's how I really got into. So my solutions are practically entirely based on my everyday experiences in communities. I think that's the edge that makes them win a lot. About 75 hackathons later, I've won all of them.
Yo. And that's obviously like a huge, huge amount of hackathons too. And a huge amount of ideas to be coming up with and like proper solutions, right?
Yes.
But I know like you've gone into the whole hackathon thing, but for someone who might not actually understand the whole process behind it and what you're actually trying to achieve with the hackathon, how would you explain it?
Okay, so a hackathon really, it's not for people who know how to code or for programmers only. A hackathon is for idealists, people who come up with ideas. Even if you do not necessarily know how to execute it, but if you have that brilliant spark in you to solve a common problem that you think tech can really solve in South Africa or anywhere else, then a hackathon is for you. A hackathon is not for you. It's not for us programmers. So it's a collection of different people from different backgrounds coming together for that weekend to build a solution that will try to solve whatever problem statement has been put forward by the organizers of that hackathon. So for someone who's never really programmed, for instance, or been in a competitive programming space like I did and still go to a hackathon and win. So it tells you that they're not looking for the best technically minded person. They're looking for the person with the solution to start a revolution. Yes. So essentially, a hackathon is that kickoff phase for you to start something, to put your foot into a very lucrative industry that can make or break you. Yes. So that's essentially what hackathons are really are.
So in terms of like a team maybe that one would assemble, you talked about like there's different types of people that get involved, like all in that one project. What are some of the examples of those kinds of people? Like is it software developers and graphic designers? Which people combine to work?
Okay, so I'm the worst person to ask that question, by the way, because usually I work alone. But in instances where I had to involve a team, it was I look at certain traits. So is that person a developer? Then they can probably help me with certain tasks. Is that person a business solution creator, like a person with an idea? So and then is that person a creative person? Because you need to design something that looks nice, not just work technically, but your presentations are not nice, your user interfaces is not nice. So I think a mix between business, creative, and technical is the best combination. Don't go into a team of more than 4 people. 4 people is your maximum, absolute maximum. Yes.
Yeah. And I know before you talked about like what gives your projects particularly the edge, that you really look into the actual, solution, like what are we trying to achieve?
Yes.
Is there maybe like a magic recipe that you have, like when you start with a project, like this is the first thing that I analyze and look at when I'm trying to figure out what to do, what project or how to tackle it?
The first thing, my main secret is, okay, Tumelo, I'm not the programmer. I'm a user of that certain solution that I'm thinking of. So secondly is, how will that project sustain itself? How will it make money? The saddest thing about technology really is nothing can really sustain itself for free. So you need to have a business case for it. So your business case must be viable. It must also work apart from the funding that you will probably get, like your seed funding and everything. So it must work besides from that. It must work without even revenue from your users. So you need to think of a lot of, you need to make business
variables.
a business sense really when you're creating such applications. I need to know exactly what I'm going to do, where I'm going to do it. Yes.
Yeah. So you've done a lot of projects. You said like 75, I think. And some of them have been health related, which is quite relevant to our blog and our channel.
Yes.
What are some of those projects that you've done? Just maybe like a brief explanation of them and what you were trying to achieve with those solutions.
Okay, so the prime project that I did that was health related was called Guardian. So it won the actually Minister Ayanda Dlodlo's inaugural Ignite Hack 2018. It was held at UJ. So yeah, you coming there, no educational background, what are you going to do? So what I built there, because we were two guys, so it's a friend of mine named Mukondli. So the main problem we have in hospitals currently is synchronization of files.
Yeah.
It's expensive to dig for fiber and connect each and every hospital. So now, coming from my background of wireless networks, we came up with a simple concept. If we can put up a main tower on top of a hospital and connect all other regional hospitals to that hospital via wireless, we won't need A, manpower to dig, B, we won't need expensive cables like STM 626 whatever. We won't need those cables. Instead, we have a low-cost, no internet solution that is able to synchronize data with each other.
Sure.
The second thing was servers are expensive. So how do we essentially run this on credit card-sized computers, Raspberry Pis? So what we did is we built something called Guardian. What Guardian does is it connects two nodes into one network. A hospital is a node. So each hospital acts as a server. So if the files change on this side, they will automatically synchronize on this side.
Change on the other side, yeah.
The other side. So when I say files changes, if there's a new patient that has been enrolled here, then this now also has that patient record automatically installed without having to connect over the internet. But now the security behind it, because there's POPI laws, there's HIPAA for medical records. So now how we did it is we built something called Scuttlebutt. So Scuttlebutt is a public protocol, but now it was not built to synchronize files. So we needed to find a buffer whereby we could say computer A announces a file. Computer B, on the other hand, has to announce a certificate. Now, they both have certificates that are different, but there's a private key that allows them to communicate with each other. So that's where we create something called an immutable ledger. So the immutable ledger was based on something called Blake 2B hash. So there's a master node that signs all the requests going around in the whole network. So essentially what we did is hospitals can now collaborate with each other, secure without buying equipment costing millions. Literally the whole setup cost 5,000 to do at a single hospital. And you can automatically, so now the beauty of it was not from the synchronization. The beauty of it was from the collaborative power between all the hospitals. Public hospitals primarily have a lack of risk in terms of experienced doctors working there. So now how do we better optimize the available workforce to collaborate with each other? So now at a clinic, for example, a file is created for you digitally on the platform. Then it's uploaded on the network. Now, what it does, it looks for the top 10 doctors that are best suited to help you with that particular case around you. Then it automatically shares that info with them. But it does not identify you as a patient. It makes that whole record anonymous. So all they do is they send in their recommendations, and then the recommendations are then filtered back to the clinic. So like, okay, so this is what we recommend this person be prescribed. Now, the next time you go back with that same problem, the machine already knows what to do with that. So it has a bit of machine learning implemented to it. So now it knows exactly what to prescribe you. So the main issue here was, okay, we know telemedicine is touted as being fourth in, but no. We have to address the critical infrastructure problems we have in Africa. We can't take something that works extremely well in the Western countries and try to implement it here, whereby you can now talk to your doctor via Zoom or anything. No, it just won't work. It won't scale. So that's what we do. We use telemedicine, but at prescribed locations to actually optimize the whole operation and make it scalable across the whole network.
Like now that you've done like something that's a really viable solution and that's obviously going to tackle the problem, and you've done it at the hackathon. What is the next step from there, like in terms of implementation? Do you think that a lot of the ideas get processed and go into basically the actual health system that you were designing it for?
Can I tell you the honest truth? Hackathons is where ideas most of the time go to die. Okay, so you came up with this brilliant idea. You don't have capital to really push it. The support you are supposed to, like, for example, if a minister runs this type of hackathon, you are sure that the government will probably support and put resources. When I say resources, I don't mean money. like manpower into actually building and implementing this type of solution, they, it's one tender request after the other, whereby nothing will really work. You'll engage with them, travel a lot, but nothing will really come out of it.
And what would you say then are some of the things that could be done so that these ideas, because I mean, you guys are coming up with great ideas and you working tirelessly to actually create really great solutions. How do we then tackle those kinds of, incubation hubs that then never really grow into anything?
I mean, how can you place someone who's never done a startup before as a head of an incubation hub? You need leaders that have actually done this, that have suffered to actually put something into market. Then you get someone who really knows what must be done to the youth, to help them actually scale up and everything.
So then in terms of basically, because I would imagine maybe having more people get involved in these kinds of things is obviously very important, especially in the people who are medical professionals and would want to get into that space, working with people in tech. What advice would you have for them trying to foster that kind of collaboration?
I think the biggest advice is, I'm the worst person to ask for advice anyway, but I think it's more of use this as a learning curve. Probably the more you fail, the better you start to understand how to exactly get to market.
Yeah.
So when you fail, you don't necessarily have to call it quits. Continue refining that idea of yours. I mean, one day, it might not be now, it may be 5 years or 10 years down the line. But one day, across the whole ecosystem, you'll find someone with a common goal.
Yeah.
Actually take your project somewhere. Because now, like Facebook was not an overnight success on its own.
Of course.
It had to find a visionary who will take that thing forward. So I think by talking a lot, this thing of I'm trying to protect my idea, it won't work. An idea is your idea in your head. If people are still suffering and you have a solution for that, why not speak about it?
True.
Why don't you get that thing into people's hands? Yes. So one example I can use, my common goal was to connect everyone to the internet. It's unviable, but we've actually kickstarted it again using Wi-Fi Africa. We're doing it. So instead of hiding your plans, no, you don't need to hide your plans because thinking you'll be the next big billionaire. If with that mindset, you won't really do anything at all. Yes.
I think we've gained really a lot from the whole discussion, especially with the example with the project that you've done. Yes. Essentially, efficiency with anything that we're going to do, and sustainability. I think also the biggest thing for anything that any solution, whatever problem that we're trying to tackle. But yeah, I think obviously collaboration with all the big sectors and with everyone is
collaboration when organic is the killer. Don't force collaboration if it's not organic. You will fail so hard. You will wish you've never actually entered that industry.
So it has to be organic. That's the key.
It has to be organic. That's the key.